over here before we get
I absolutely do. So Mike McAllister's joining us, and he's going to be on with us tomorrow night on the TV version of Orange Nation. It's normally a Monday night show.
Orange Nation you like better.
But because of the holiday, we're moving it to Tuesday this week. And then Mike and I will be on the quad. Mike's got a busy day on Saturday. Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing well. You're going to get sick of me before the season is over.
Or you're going to get sick of me, one way or the other.
That's very easy to do, Mike. I can tell you that.
So, Mike, you're a busy guy Saturday. Just before we jump into this, let everybody know what you're going to be doing pregame-wise on Saturday.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing the first hour with Gio at Shaughnessy's, and then I get some travel time to get over to the Dome, and I'll be on the quad doing the pregame show with you from there. So that's the pregame situation, and then still trying to debate whether or not I'm going to take my son to the actual game. That's still up in the air a little bit.
Do it. There, I just said I made this.
I probably will. I probably will.
LA Orange
spending my money for me, but that's okay.
LA Orange just brought up a great point. Why doesn't fan favorite Paul get a TV spot on Orange Nation?
So I've tried to have you on Bridge Street multiple times when I was hosting, and you said no. So
I went on when you weren't hosting.
I know, but I get the sense that 2 hours a day, I feel like that's our capacity.
I would
for
have
each
you
other.
on if I was a TV star. Just for that.
I've tried. I tried to have a meal with you in Atlanta. No, too busy. Too busy. Can't meet you.
I didn't get in until 8, and then I left.
We were
I
at
got
the same
in at
stadium. We didn't even see each other.
I got in at 8:30 and left at noon.
Okay, so we could have had dinner at 9. I could have met up with you.
All right.
It's okay.
Mike, all right, sorry.
Everybody thinks it's me, but it's actually you.
We're arguing at the dinner table.
All right, Mike, we got a lot to talk about with this game. We've been saying that, final score aside, we actually left that game maybe a little bit more encouraged about this team than we were going in, especially on the offensive side of the football. How do you feel about this SU squad coming out of this first game?
I feel like it was a situation where kind of early there was a little bit of deer in headlights. Oh my goodness, this is actually a game, and it's a playoff team across the field from us, and kind of a come to Jesus type of a moment, right? And that led to the poor start, which got them behind the 8 ball and made it extremely difficult to come back. That said, they made it a game. They had an absolute chance to put a ton of game pressure on Tennessee. It would have been real interesting to see what would have happened if Syracuse had been able to score early in the fourth quarter to cut it to a 1-score game, to see how Tennessee would have responded to that. I think they thought, most Tennessee fans thought, that when it was 38-14, the game was over. And Syracuse made sure that it wasn't quite over yet, and they just couldn't quite get over that hump. But that 17-0 start really put them behind the 8 ball, weren't able to overcome it. But they played even with a playoff team from a year ago against one of the best defenses in the country for 3 quarters, essentially. And so I think there was some encouraging signs there. On top of that, I thought Steve Angeli looked a little nervous, jittery, et cetera, early, but then basically the last 3 quarters looked really good. I thought it looked like he got more comfortable and sort of got into rhythm, and the offense started moving. So yeah, I think there are certainly things to be encouraged by. I also think that there are some things such as tackling and other things on the defensive side of the ball that are concerning as they move forward through the rest of the year.
I was just going to say, you brought up the tackling. That was a problem last year too. So do you think this year's team, it's fixable?
I mean, I don't think anything is not fixable. Like, it's impossible to fix it. I don't want to say after one game that that's the case, and especially with how much youth that they have. And, I know it was an issue last year, but, at the same time, you had a bunch of guys that had been there under previous coaching staffs that perhaps had developed some bad habits, and, it's tough to get out of those. But I did think there were times last year where the tackling was better, and I certainly think it was better when Marlo Wax got in there. This year, you've got a lot of new faces. You've got a lot of youth out there. We know they're starting a 17-year-old at corner, right? But some of the issues weren't some of those guys. Like Tank Wilson wasn't here under a previous coaching staff, and he's the one who missed the tackle on the 2nd and 10 at the end of the first half, where that would have been a 3rd and 12, 3rd and 13. I think Tennessee would have basically conceded the half at that point. Instead, they go 40-some-odd yards and end up right, in scoring position, and that completely changed the momentum going into the locker room at halftime. So I think there's probably multiple factors there. I don't want to say it's impossible for it to get better, but given what we saw last year and what we saw a little bit this year, I mean, I think it's reasonable to be concerned that it's going to be an issue all year.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I said that to Paulie at the top of the show that I felt like that was the play of the game. The Tank Wilson missed tackle right before the end of the half. It completely changed the momentum, the confidence level. Syracuse would have gotten the ball coming out of the locker room, a chance to cut it to a one-possession game. Really changed so much with that one play. Was there anything that surprised you in this game, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that Syracuse scored 26 points on Tennessee, if I'm being quite frank with you. Or I kind of, similar to what Paulie said earlier, they were kind of chasing points there, which they went for 2 a couple of times and otherwise wouldn't have. So you kind of consider it about 28 points. And then the field goal at the end, if they're not trying to make up, 20, 30 points in the last couple of minutes, then they kick a field goal there. So you can kind of look at it and say they put up 30 points on a team that gave up about 15, 16 a game last year and held 5 or 6 opponents under 20 points. That to me was the surprising part, I think, of all the things I saw. Now, I was a little bit surprised that the tackling was what it was. I was a little bit surprised, even though they have some youth there and things of that nature, that some of the blown coverages, specifically the one where Samuel got beat deep right after Syracuse had scored, and then seconds later Tennessee has a big play to put 7 more points on the board for them. Those were a couple of maybe the surprising things, but largely I think a lot of things a lot of things went somewhat the way we expected. I think we thought that Eugene Willis had the potential to be a breakout player this year. The wide receivers, I thought at times looked pretty good. Justice Ross Simmons seemed to get separation a few times. Jonte Cook, before he seemed to get a little bit banged up, looks like he's got potential to be explosive. So I thought there were some good things and some things that we thought on paper would play out. And then, the last thing I'll say, the offensive line, I know they gave up 5 sacks, but it seemed like there were a couple of those where it was holding on to the ball too long, so you can kind of blame the quarterback a little bit. And then it mostly seemed like it was miscommunication on blitz pickup or misreads on who's coming from where, as opposed to just being completely overmatched talent-wise. I didn't get the impression that against a really good, borderline elite Tennessee defensive line, that the Syracuse offensive line, from a talent perspective, from a one-on-one straight-up perspective, was completely outmatched. I thought there were some issues with communication when you've got a new quarterback, new running back, and new offensive linemen. You can have that sometimes, especially in game 1. But largely, I thought they actually held up pretty well. I never got the impression that they were completely outmatched, and it was like every time Angeli went back there, you were kind of holding your breath which one was going to beat the Syracuse offensive lineman.
Looking ahead now, Mike, Syracuse made a 9.5-point favorite. At least that's what it opened at against UConn. UConn's, better than most people would think, right? But certainly a game that you would still expect Syracuse to win. What do you make of this Huskies team that they're going to see, and as they try to bounce back and move to 1-1?
Yeah, they put up a lot of points and, over 600 yards of total offense last week. Now, that was against a bad FCS team. So you take that into consideration, but they return a lot of players on the same offense that gave Syracuse some problems last year. And, their quarterback had a good game last year, and their number 1 wide receiver, Skylar Bell, had, I think, 11 catches on Syracuse last year. So that's certainly something to be a little bit concerned about. But defensively, they lost a ton. So you would think going into it, you kind of expect perhaps there's the potential for a high-scoring game. I don't think that I'm going to expect UConn's going to be able to put up 600 yards of offense against Syracuse. I don't think, 50, 60 points is on the horizon there. But you're hoping from a Syracuse perspective that defensively you can make some strides between games 1 and 2. But I still think Syracuse is a better team, the more talented team. But they better play well, because if they don't, UConn is certainly capable of winning that game.
All right, let's ask you one basketball question before we let you go. 5-star power forward Zion Green took a visit, 31st overall prospect in the class of 2027. What can you tell us about him, and where do things stand with him?
Yeah, really good player. Perhaps Fran Brown can help with this recruitment, because he's a Camden High School kid. So if Fran Brown can have any influence on basketball recruits, that would seem to be one that you would think that would happen with, given the high school connection. But elite player, kind of a power forward type, 6'9", I think has the potential to grow to 6'10", 6'11". And good mid-post game as of right now. Still kind of working on expanding his shot out to the three-point line. Attacks the glass, really energetic on the defensive end. Still a little bit on the skinny side, but he's class of 2027, so he's got some time to improve that. Certainly looking to add some strength and some weight to his frame, but bouncy, forward, certainly fits the mold of what Syracuse has gotten in recent years when you think of the Donnie Freemans and the Sadiq Whites at the power forward position.
All right, Mike. Great stuff as always. We'll see you on the TV side of things tomorrow night, and then up at the Quad on Saturday.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Our good friend Mike McAllister joining us here on the show. We'll take a time out here. We'll get to Lee Baldwin. We'll check in on the market in the next segment, and then Fran Brown's press conference coming to you live at 1